If you have any idea how tech works, the script will be hard to swallow.
Swallow the ones and zeros, nerd.
In fact, if you work in the IT field, you'll probably suffer minor nervous breakdowns while watching this movie.
I want to know when this review was made.
I wrote about it and put it on my floppy disk and saved it as a...
2018.
Oh,
the
wow.
realistic level of this movie is absolutely zero, and the acting is equally bad.
Absolutely
Wow.
zero.
Well, it's binary, ones and zeros, right?
Oh, okay.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, see?
That is a 1-star review from IMDb. Hello and welcome. We are Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Steven, joined as always by Andrew.
Hello.
And Ryan.
I'm sneaking in here.
Sneaky, all sneaky up in here. If that doesn't give it away, we are talking about 1992's Sneakers.
A documentary about shoes.
Absolutely.
No? Did I watch the wrong movie?
Nike was all about this one, let me tell you. All right, before we get into some basic stuff on this movie, gut check reactions. How do we feel about it?
I like this movie.
Sneakers, more like snoozers. I didn't like this movie that much.
Ryan is dead to me.
I thought it was okay. It was okay.
Ryan's dead to me.
Yeah.
He wouldn't know a good cast if it bit him.
Steven likes this movie.
I can tell.
I was raised on this film.
Steven, this is a sneakers household. Put it back on. We've seen it too many times, Mom.
All right, let's get into this here. A little synopsis. A security pro finds his past returning to haunt him when he and his unique team are tasked with retrieving a particularly important item. That is about as vague as you can be.
But it's pretty accurate.
It's accurate.
I mean, like, that's what happened.
There's some
Boy.
people trying to get some stuff.
And then the past comes back.
A guy and his friends go on an adventure against people looking for a thing.
So this movie was directed by Phil Alden Robinson.
What else did he do?
Field of Dreams.
Oh, okay.
And The Sum of All Fears.
Oh, wow.
Those are the two. Those are very different.
Man, I haven't
films.
thought about that movie in a long
Right?
time.
I haven't either.
I saw that in the list, and I saw the poster. I was like, "Whoa, I saw that in
That's
theaters."
Ben Affleck, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman's the president now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, now it clicks. That movie definitely has the vibes of sneakers. Yeah.
No. It's going to click even more. So
Why?
this movie was written by Phil Alden Robinson, as well as
Who did?
Hold on. As well as the writing duo of Lawrence Lasker and Walter F. Parks.
No way.
Yeah, you don't know who that is. So they collaborated to write War Games.
Oh, do you want to play a game?
Oh, man, I love that movie.
Right? I told you there was something about this you were going to like.
Okay.
Music is by James Horner.
Nice.
Fantastic composer.
Yeah.
A lot of credits to his name, Titanic, Avatar,
Other
among
movies.
others.
No big deal.
Just a couple $1 billion franchise. No big
just
deal.
couple.
Him and Jimmy Cam's hanging out, making music. It's great.
In the water.
Yeah. This one's in the water. I don't want to get in the water, James. I said get in the water.
Keyboard doesn't like the water.
It helps you compose.
If these actors can hold their breath for 8 minutes, you
So
can hold
can
it. He's got a piano under the water just banging it.
They come up for air. I love it.
Yeah.
This is very Your Lie in April right now.
Oh, no, it is. Get the piano shit.
So this movie stars Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley, Mary McDonnell, River Phoenix, Sidney Poitier, David Strathairn, and James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones is definitely in
He's
this.
in this film. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a list of names.
There's a lot of people in this movie.
Well, because it's like, mid-90s, so this is kind of the...
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
92.
92,
It's not
yes.
mid.
It's
Don't
not
do that
mid
to me.
yet.
Well, so it was probably shot in 91, so
Yeah.
you're looking at, These people were all heavy hitters.
I'm
in the
assuming
early
that you
90s.
consider mid to be 94, 95, 92.
Right. 91,
yeah.
92, 93.
Yeah, is early 90s,
1990s
mid-90s,
doesn't
late
count because that's
90s.
really the 80s.
Yeah.
Any movie that came out in 1990 was made in the 80s.
It's
so.
wild because so many movies that come out in 1990 are like, this feels
Like a 1980.
It's like the 80s were so visceral that the
Yeah.
spillover just happened.
keep
just
happening.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll drop a little trivia on that with the cast here. So that's 3 Oscar winners and 5 Oscar nominees in that list.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of crazy.
That's some bona
It's
fides.
an insane cast.
That's some bona fides.
So the movie was made for a budget of $23 million.
Okay. I mean, that seems pretty on par.
Most of it was salaries, I'd feel.
Again, they brought in Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Box office worldwide for $105 million.
Really?
I was shocked.
That is way more than I
I'm
expected
not going to
for
lie.
this film.
Yeah.
When I was looking at this, I expected it to be like critically panned, bombed
Yeah,
at
like
the box
30
office.
million.
Yeah, like, that's what I expected to see.
Yeah.
Because again, I grew up like my parents. I didn't see this in theaters, but my parents had the VHS of this like in 1993.
Until I had met Steven, I had literally never heard of this film.
Until I met Steven, I'd never heard of this.
I have not.
He's
met
like proselytizing
someone,
this thing.
I am. No, I have not met someone who's just like, oh yeah, that movie, Sneakers. Yeah, that was a cool movie. Like, really, you've seen it? Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm gonna ask my dad tomorrow because he's gonna come and help me do work. And
Welcome
I'm
to
gonna
a new
ask him
segment on the
if he's
show, Ask Your Dad.
if he's ever seen this movie or heard about it.
Oh, okay.
It'd be pretty cool to find out what his answer is. We can't put it on the show.
What if,
That's not
what if
how
he's
it
just
works.
like, no. I've told you 100 times, Andrew. Quit
so
asking.
He loves Robert Redford as an actor. So it would be surprising if he didn't, but you never know.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
Who knows?
But yeah, that's way more than I was expecting.
No,
Right? Me too.
When Steven first suggested we do this movie, I was like, "What is this?" And like, I didn't. I looked at the poster.
Oh, the poster doesn't give you
The
anything.
VHS cover. I was like, I don't remember seeing this in video stores. I don't remember seeing a trailer for this. Like, I've never seen this on cable. This movie, I was
It's
like,
the Mandela
is this a
effect.
Berenstain Bears
Yeah.
thing? Where I'm like, what is happening? I don't remember this. And you started listing off who was in it. I was like, no, I would have heard of this movie.
Well, I mean, the movie's all about what's real and what isn't real, and
Yeah.
surprise, it's not real. It
Surprise.
didn't actually exist.
The movie never came
It was
out.
actually released last year. You just didn't know.
It's the prequel to The Matrix.
Exactly. So do you have the breakdown on what percentage of that money was domestic versus the...
I didn't pull it
Yeah.
up, Andrew. If you want to,
I would assume it's like
I'll
higher
look it up.
domestic,
It's
obviously.
surely. I assume that any kind of really dialogue intense, especially in the '90s, dialogue intensive films have to be more of a domestic pull.
Well, and it's a
has to
very
be.
political thriller based around our government and
Right, there are so many references to
Yeah.
things like the Republican National Party. That
Right.
like what does England care?
Yeah, you just feel like, is that going to fly anywhere else?
yeah.
It's
So it's got to be
crazy popular in Laos. What?
Even split. 51 million
Oh, wow.
domestic,
Okay,
53 million
The
international.
flip side to this argument is Robert Redford and Dan Aykroyd are huge names.
They are.
Yeah,
So that probably does
especially
go up
Redford
for-
at the time.
well, I mean, also Aykroyd. I mean, like
Yeah.
comedy peak coming out of the '80s.
Sidney
Yeah.
Poitier was huge too, but I don't know
He's
about
a big deal.
internationally.
I don't know if he would be an
Yeah.
international star, but like those are the two names that whenever I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, they're. I mean, Ben Kingsley is also a pretty big deal at this point
Because
Yeah.
Gandhi had come out
Oh.
in like the 80s.
It came out on September 11th
Oh, wow.
of '92.
of 92. Yeah, yeah,
9
yeah.
years
But I
in
mean,
the
like, it's still September.
That
There's only one.
that date had no meaning at the time other than it was just
didn't.
911.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it here. Some spoiler-free thoughts on this film.
Yeah.
Who's taking charge? Andrew's just
Yeah,
fascinated
no,
by
I'm good. I was just reading.
The
So,
internet has got him ensnared.
so I've seen this movie twice, and I think the first time I watched it, I didn't like it as much as I liked it the second time.
That's not surprising.
Mostly just because, like, I think going into it the first time, I was expecting something completely different than what I got. But what I
Gotcha.
got is still interesting because I do like kind of like a heist, political spy thriller
Yeah.
kind of movie.
Type of vibe.
Crypt-
Yeah.
Cryptography, puzzle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't. It doesn't have the punch of what you would think a lot of these films kind of would require. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
Well, it
No,
doesn't-
you're
it's,
on-
it's
yeah.
not a James Bond like solve the puzzle or the nuke goes off and destroys
And it's not
the world.
like an adventure film in the sense of like the danger is still like there are threats, but the threats that exist are more cerebral,
Right.
Or
Than it
very
is
under the surface.
Yeah. So like you don't have like these big kind of like set pieces that you kind of come to expect with like a spy thriller.
Right.
So,
There's no Mission Impossible. Like,
Yeah.
Dangling from the side
dangling
of the
from the
bridge.
ceiling.
and you do
Yeah.
have some good interactions with like the core cast crew and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that some of them are like obviously Robert Redford does a really good job.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd does a good job. But I think the interactions with them, they don't have the all the chemistry that I kind of expect from these kind of like ensemble casts. And I think that's kind of what throws it off for me initially. And watching it the second time, you get a little bit more of the nuance with some of their characters and character interactions.
Right.
But it's definitely one of those where it's a much more subdued film than what you go in expecting.
For sure.
It's a very cerebral film.
It is.
It is. I think so. For me, I only watched it once.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be the same situation with
My fault. All three of these watchings are my fault.
No, but I think for me, my problem was my expectations going in based off the cast was very high because I thought, oh man, Redford, Poitier, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley, you know, like all these people, this is gonna be crazy. And then it's a very subdued film, so it took me a minute to kind of like
recalibrate what you were expecting.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it was like, not to compare it to like Ocean's 11 because they're very different movies, but that's another movie that has.
We weren't that far away from having watched Ocean's 11.
Yeah. And it's also a movie that has George Clooney, Brad Pitt, like a lot of big names.
Ensemble heist. Yeah.
And it's like the chemistry between these characters feels more stilted and forced at times than it does like in Ocean's 11, which is it came out later.
It's a much more polished, snappy.
It's effortless. It feels like these people hung out offset and on set. This movie feels like they interacted when the camera was rolling.
Yeah.
End of list sometimes. Not every time.
Not every time, but sometimes.
The other thing for me was that having this kind of pedigree of actors almost hurts it because I've seen Sidney Poitier do way better work in other movies. I've seen Robert Redford do way better work in other movies. I've seen Dan Aykroyd be better at being funny Dan Aykroyd in lots of other movies. So when you're getting like 8 out of 10 on each of their performances of what you know they can do, it's like, oh man, I was kind of hoping this was going to be like a sleeper, like, oh, I love Robert Redford. This is one of, a movie I'd never seen before. And it turned out, go ahead, sorry.
I was like, it's the super team issue of, we got 5 superstars on our basketball
There's no way
team.
we could fail.
There's only one ball though.
Right.
Not everyone gets to shoot, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say they do a decent job of balancing the cast out, and some of the characters like Whistler and other
Whistler
ones are great.
I love Whistler so much.
Every time I see David Strathairn, I think, "Oh my God, that's Jason Bourne," because he says that. And every time he would like look at a screen, I'd say it. Oh my God, it's Jason.
Say the
Bourne.
line.
But the other thing for me, so okay, that's like level 1 was like I enjoyed it. Okay, it was fine, but it was definitely more subdued than I thought it was going to be. The chemistry is like, okay, it's not quite there. And then there are definitely though some good like witty banter moments. Like there's certain individual pockets in a scene.
And you have some, like there are some really fantastic scenes, particularly which will have to happen during the spoiler wall.
Yeah.
That really like kind of sets home of like the actual stakes of like what they're dealing with, like what the crew is dealing with, which I'm like, I really love like some really kind of like, because there's some good moments there.
Yeah.
It's just, it takes a little while to get there.
Which
it does.
I like your Ocean's 11 mention actually, because the interactions between Mother and Kreese are almost like the prototype for your brother's interactions in Ocean 11. Like it's very similar.
So I think the biggest thing for me though is the love interest between Redford and
it's a little forced.
It's a little forced, and they don't have the chemistry that you kind of want from that.
Mary McDonnell or Liz in the film.
Yeah, Liz. Sorry. So like I think that definitely hurts the film.
Yeah.
Because like they just don't have it.
I feel like that is kind of indicative of the relationships across the board, though, because like him and Ben Kingsley, I don't really have a ton of like, oh, I get it why they're like at each other because they used to be friends. It's like you get that one scene at the front, and then it kind of like to me, it's like if in terms of love interest, antagonist, and crew, each of those angles is like executed pretty good, but not quite to the polish that I was wanting.
See, I would almost argue that there isn't a friendship there because you don't really get to know how long they knew each other before they're separate. They spend far more time apart than not.
Together,
so it's really almost like Cosmo is Marty's regret as opposed to like a lost friendship.
Yeah, because that's really the only reason why he is. And I actually think that their relationship does make a little bit more sense the second time I watched it because you have one like from Marty's perspective, it's kind of like the regret of like, oh, I didn't go to jail and this guy did. That just happens in the first scene. It's not a spoiler. And then on the opposite end, he has fixated his vengeance, or basically fixated on Marty while he's been in prison and all this other kind of stuff over the years.
Right.
So you have this kind of more idolization of that, of like what his mind thinks
the
Marty
ideal
is.
of what it would be like if Marty were here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really friendship. I think it's more on the lines of you're someone that I have.
Each ideas with ideals within their mind.
Again, it's a subdued film. It's kind of nuanced.
It is, because like if you think of like any other movie where it's like a rivalry like that, right? Like it would be, you would have a lot of scenes of Ben Kingsley kind of exploring that on his side, and we don't really ever get there.
Yeah, we don't get
we don't get much of that at all. No.
The other thing I would say is like I love his car. First off, by the way, that little orange car he drives.
Dude, his little car is so.
I love that car. Like,
it's
like an Alfa Romeo
beater.
Like
it's a beater in the movie, but man, it looks snappy.
It looks snappy. Like I want to drive that car so bad. Is the mechanics of the plot of the heist, right? Aren't super easy to grok immediately. Like the stakes aren't really apparent until you start kind of actually getting
until you're
into
in
it.
there.
And so I was having trouble like getting into what was like caring about the outcome of stuff, because like everyone, it's almost like the movie wants you to care from the jump, but they haven't told you why you should care. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then like as the movie's going, you're like, so wait, why? What's the issue here? And then when it finally reveals itself, I love that scene, but it's kind of like almost too little too late for me, of like, oh, okay, so now that's what we're after this. Got it. Because like that front whole section to me was like, I don't know, I guess
it's not clear as to what the big import of
what's
this could be.
what's pushing this forward.
But that's kind of how the movie works, though, story wise, because they don't know.
The crew doesn't know.
Right. No.
Like they're intentionally supposed to not know.
And it might be that, again, if I watch it a second time,
I'm going to
make you watch it
I like it better.
And that's the thing is, like, I definitely think that watching it the second time has really made it much more positive in my mind. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, it was fine.
Yeah.
It's a film.
That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe if I watch it a second time, here, me and you would be out in the streets proselytizing for it. Like, you've got to watch Sneakers.
See, the problem is, again, I grew up with this. This is a formative movie for me. Like, like you're like, oh, Steven likes heist movies. Why? This is why. Oh, Steven likes, tech movies. Why? This is why. Because like at the time as a kid, seeing the way that characters like Whistler thinks about problems was mind-blowing for me.
Right.
The way they problem solve around things was just a whole different avenue that, at the time when I was like 10 or whatever, was like, oh, you can do that? Like you can approach things from, people think outside the box. It's totally like there is no box.
There is no box. Yeah.
So for me, it's always fascinated me from that angle. And I can see, like, again, the review is from like 2018, right?
Yeah.
If you watch, and this is an issue that a lot of heist movies have, is when you watch an older heist movie, and like in modern days, none of this works. There's just surveillance cameras.
Yeah.
Cell phones.
Your cell phone's in your pocket. The NSA is immediately there. It just doesn't work.
Analog technology from, basically 1995 prior to that is very easy to manipulate.
Right.
And there's so much in the margins. There's so much room for maneuvering. That it's almost, again, it's the first scene in the movie. It's really not a spoiler. It's almost unrealistic what happens then, because it's like 1969. It's like, how would you ever know?
Yeah.
At that point, like, there's no way.
Yeah.
What, is J. Edgar Hoover on the phone? Like, what? Like,
What? Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I really enjoy this film. I love the interactions within the crew.
Yeah.
I think the love interest is the weakest piece, in that it's never really, you don't get enough history there.
Well, I feel like it's like you've seen that kind of like, they used to be together, now they're not. Will they, won't they get back together type relationship before. And it's all about the chemistry between the main two, of like, do you buy that they were once together? You know what I mean? Like, if you can buy it and you want them to get back together immediately, like George Clooney and Julia Roberts from like Ocean's 11.
I think part of it too is Robert Redford's still pretty old in this compared to her.
Yeah.
He at least looks old. He's probably
he looks old.
He's probably like 35 or something.
Yeah. But like, he looks old compared to her, so it feels more unrealistic that like they have like a really storied history when she looks like maybe like early 30s at the
Right.
at the most, and then he looks definitely 45 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see here. Oh, okay. So he was. Oh gosh, can I math?
You were on math
55.
team. Do it.
He's 52 in this movie.
Oh God. Okay.
Right? Yeah, he's born in. So Robert Redford was born in 1936.
Well, yeah.
What?
He was
Right?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid came out in what, like 68, 69?
Oh my gosh.
Right, that's what I did. I
did not know
that's why.
that.
That's why I couldn't math because I did the double. Like, hold on, that number doesn't look right. He'd been born before World War II. The Great Depression was happening.
How old was she?
Let's find out. Liz.
Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid was
Liz.
1969, and that was like his
Wow.
breakout, one of
Yeah.
his breakout
Mary
hits.
McDonald, not Liz McDonald.
Well, so the movie I know Robert Redford from is The Natural, which I love that movie. It's phenomenal.
It's a great movie.
So she is 16 years his younger.
Okay.
It's not as big a gap
So
as
she
it looks
was
like.
she was 36.
Right, and he was
Yeah.
52. So it's not as big a gap as it appears. And I think some of it too is just so she has a very what I would call 80s chic look.
Yes.
Like the hair and like the way the way
Sheena
she
Easton
carries
kind of,
herself.
yeah.
And he just looks like Robert Redford.
Yeah, exactly. So she looks very hip and modern. And he just looks like
He just looks like Robert Redford.
They're like, Robert, head to wardrobe. Already wearing what I'm gonna wear.
no, his jacket is from The Natural. His Letterman's jacket that he's wearing, it's from The Natural. You don't need a little black box to hack into all of our content. We just put it all out there on spoilersintendedpodcast.com, along with things like links to our Patreon, our Discord, and our socials.
Yeah, so we have a Discord that you can come and join. We have a great little community that we have cultivated, and we love to talk about what we're watching, what food we're cooking,
What our pets are up
what
to.
our pets are up to, which is most of the time sleeping or looking cute. Who knows?
They look
games we're
cute. Just by
playing.
default,
Yeah.
they look cute.
Yeah.
Also, follow us on social. We have a Facebook and Instagram. We post some behind the scenes stuff. We also post what we're going to be reviewing next week, so you can watch along with us.
And we're back. We have successfully hacked into the spoilers.
Yes.
So if you have not seen 1992's Sneakers, and you don't want to be spoiled on a movie that is more than 30 years old, this is your time to
Get out
step
now.
away and
So-
go watch the film.
It's interesting, too. I think that this movie could have been named better.
Yes.
100%.
Dude, this movie is just by default hard to Google because you type sneakers and it's just like,
Oh,
Nike?
it's done.
Air Jordan? What?
This was clearly before SEO was even
Even
an
a
afterthought.
thought. Yeah, no.
But then also like the movie poster is
It's
like
terrible.
It's
It's
just terrible.
terrible.
It's this big white square with like a little. They're peeking out of the corner. I'm like, what's that even represent in the movie?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's kick this off with a little trivia. And I do mean a little, because there really isn't much for this film. I was actually
Okay.
kind of surprised. Usually when we
That is
do
kind of, especially
older
with this
films,
many big name people.
yeah, they've had so much time to talk about it.
They just never talked about it.
Don't want to talk
Robert
about
Redford's
it.
like, I did a movie called what?
So Martin and Cosmo's initial hack in the movie takes place. The facade that when they pull back that you see is the Hill Valley Clock Tower from Back to the Future.
Oh wow.
I knew that looked familiar.
Yeah, right. I did too. I've never placed that.
I
Until
never
now.
placed it, but
I had a moment where I was like, it's just college, whatever. It's like a, whatever.
It's just a
Here's
generic. Yeah. So James Earl Jones's quote at the end of the movie, what's important is that this never happened, is nearly word perfect for his same quote at the end of Hunt for the Red October.
so all this is just the Hunt for Red October cinematic universe.
Yeah, because this movie, Hunt for Red October is 90?
90.
And this is 92.
Yeah.
You know what would have made this movie better? A little Jack Ryan in it.
Alec Baldwin going by in the
Break me
background.
off a little Baldwin right in the middle of this. Perked right
Man,
up.
again, that would be an insane cast.
Yeah.
So Professor Lynn Adelman, we're going a little off. This is not a character. This is a real person.
I was like,
Okay.
who was that?
Yeah, I know.
I was like going through the Rolodex.
Who the heck is that person? So he's one of the 3 mathematicians who invented the RSA cryptography system. So it was like the first big major modern cryptography system. He's a consultant for the movie, and he actually wrote the slides that are used by Janik to represent the unbreakable codes. Yannick.
Yannick,
whatever.
Janik.
That's the southern version.
Hi, I'm Jerry Janik.
But those slides that he's like superimposed over are actually written by like
An
huge
actual
mathematician.
cryptographer,
Like a real mathematician for this.
Oh, that's cool.
Which by the
cool.
way, the guy that plays Yannick is Donald Logue is his name. And I always remember him as MTV. He was the cab driver on the interstitials on MTV where it'd be like between music videos.
I don't know this. I don't know the reference at all. No.
My fellow olds listening to the podcast.
I can't help you.
There was basically like in between music videos, they'd go to commercial break when they'd bump in and bump out. It was him in this cab, like sweating, like, that's it. He's like his New York cabbie. And he was also in something else. He's always been like a character actor in this era of like late 80s, early 90s type stuff. But I always think of the MTV cab driver. Now I got to look up, make sure that was him. I'm almost 1,000,000% sure.
I hope it's not. I hope it's not, just for the laugh.
Anyways, keep going.
Well, there's not a whole lot left. So the phone number given to Carl at the end of the movie is a real number. And so typically, apparently at this time, they would start phone numbers in movies with 555 because there's a fake area code.
Yeah.
But the producers realized they didn't want to give Carl a fake number because so much about the movie is about what's real and what's not. That it would feel like, well, he didn't get his reward. She's not giving him his number. So they used a real phone number, and when the movie released, you could call that number, and it had a voicemail that related somehow to it.
Oh, that's funny.
It doesn't anymore. It's a real number. And like in an interview, one of the either the director or someone else was like, yeah, we stopped paying for the number, and it's just a real number out there. So I imagine that person gets all kinds of just crank calls.
Donald Logue was Jimmy the cab driver on MTV.
Well done.
1994 is when he did that. So 2 years after this.
Good poll.
Yeah,
Well, he looks completely different. I'll play you guys a clip from it later, and you'll be like, that. Anyways.
Like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Well, that's basically all the trivia. Like I
Okay.
said, there were a lot of trivias that were just those moments where it's like, this is the first time that because it's all these names, that these two actors have appeared in a film together, or this is the only time these two, and it's like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So-
It's like, whatever. Like, that has no significant bearing on, like,
Yeah, I expected, honestly, there'd be way more like Easter eggs or things also coming. There was one that I didn't actually write down, but when they are in like the booth in Cosmo's office, and it's like the weird computer thing in the corner that they sit on the bench.
the server.
Yeah, so that's an actual supercomputer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a Cray. It was like one of the most powerful computers.
Oh,
at the
interesting.
time, right?
Wow.
So the thing that I always laugh about that office is, like, clearly he's got the slicked back hair. So I'm like, he's probably like a mobster, but then he just has like a silhouette of a mobster right next to his thing.
It's
like,
such a weird office.
No one.
It's such a weird office, and like the big fish tank with the whatever swimming around in it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna feed someone to that? I don't understand the purpose.
It's like when the set designer showed up, what was his like, okay, what do we have left in the we have like fish tank? Yeah, big, whole wall.
Yeah, just
Lighting, lighting, very dramatic.
yeah. Only point at the walls.
I want him to, like, whenever like they were like making this set, I bet someone was like, make it look like a modern day mobster's set. And he's like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's like, we got
I
a
definitely
mobster
know what you're
standee.
talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Fake it till you make it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I also love when they're having their big discussion about the mob, and like Cosmo pulls up, and it's just like 1993's version of Excel or whatever. Like, this looks so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So-
the idea of what GUIs were back then
Right.
for computers was fascinating.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
The other thing that I always wonder about is like, well, I looked up a little bit of it because the earliest hack, when it's 1969, I was like, could they have actually done this? And the answer is no. Basically, like in 69, you could dial into a certain things
There are so few connections out there to connect
Right.
to.
That's the actual problem.
that to actually, the banking that they were trying to do is like, that's everything's by papers and phone. Like they're not.
There's no
computer spooling up on their end. You know,
late 80s,
right?
Like with war games and that kind of stuff.
That makes more sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I think the
early 80s,
the call in 69 could have happened. Like they could have like hacked or like dialed in, but it was like the protocol to like communicate back and forth to do that. It
just didn't exist.
That level of stuff wasn't until like 72. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a few years later.
They really needed to set that later in the 70s.
A little bit later, but I think because they wanted Nixon in there.
Yeah, well, they wanted the big pivotal Nixon Vietnam. The 60s was the time of like social change or whatever. So they wanted like that, like, oh, you're a social crusader.
Yeah.
Well, and all movies that are nostalgic always have like the 30-year flashback. That's like the rule of 30.
You jump back by a certain amount of years.
Yeah, like because in the Back to the Future in the 80s, they flash back to the 50s because people in the 80s remember 30 years ago fondly.
Yeah. People who are 40s in the 80s were like, I grew up in that era. Oh yeah, I remember. Oh yeah, I remember that hair. And
wow, that's exactly what's happening
to us
right
you
now.
Hush. I hate it. I hate it so much.
If we went back to 85, that's a further jump than what Marty did to the 50s. Let that sink in.
Don't say that.
Why would you say stuff like that?
I'm evil and old.
All right, so spoilers are wild and free here.
They're everywhere.
I really do like the scene whenever they're at they're having their little like party of like, hey, we're rich now. Really not that rich. It's like 175 grand split between six people.
Thank you. That was going to be one of the biggest points. Keep going.
So I love when they do the first heist on the bank, and then he's like going up to the boardroom and revealing all the problems or whatever, and the lady cuts him the check and he's like, it's a job. She goes, not that good a job. And she handed the check like, what did they pay you? Was it like $100 bucks?
It was like $200.
Yeah.
Well, I had this moment. I paused it after they said like $120,000 or whatever it was. And he was like, whoa. And I paused it. I go, is this a very 2024 thought? Has inflation broken my mind to the point that I'm like, that's nothing?
That is basically nothing.
Was it 125 or 175?
It was 175.
175. Yeah.
That's what 400,000.
We're gonna find out. Dollars in 1998.
But when they said that, they were like, "Whoa!" I was like, "What do y'all exist on? How much are you making on your average like gig? Like,
they all just live in that loft apartment.
418,000.
Hey,
look at that!
Hey.
It's almost like we have a decent idea how that works.
Generally,
I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. If you told me, hey, for like 2 days worth of work, here's $500,000.
Oh no, yeah, I mean,
like that's still.
Sure, but like,
that's
that ain't split like 19 ways. They got so many people in this crew.
It's split down. So like at the most you're getting like $75,000 equivalent.
Well, but also at the same time, if you pull a job for the NSA,
I mean,
call back.
You'll call back.
Government contracts are the.
I understand. I mean, I get it.
Very lucrative.
But yeah, it's one of those things where they're having their party, and then they do have the revelation of like what this black box is. That's a fantastic scene,
dude. That scene,
especially because Whistler, like you see the screen in his eyes,
but
he's feeling the braille stuff.
Yeah, the braille keyboard
was so cool.
Display thing is freaking cool.
But like that sequence where you have the shot through the glass table of the Scrabble tiles.
Where it's under.
Yeah, like for that whole scene, the cinematographer's like, we're having a good day, boys.
Well, so it really, like, that scene was so well put together. Mm-hmm. I feel that they made the whole movie off of that scene.
That concept. Well, because I don't get me wrong, the C-Tech astronomy, all about that is really stupid.
It kind of is.
It's kind of dumb. Yeah,
it is. But it created a cool scene.
Yeah.
So I let it slide a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those couple of plot points that stick out. The more I see it, the older. Well,
because it's just so happenstance.
It's just stupid. Just in general, like why? Also, like C-Tech, is it SEA? Is it just a C?
Yeah,
is
right.
It
they never really define.
No one spells this for anyone. So how do you do it in Scrabble?
Yeah,
the sequence with Whistler's big glasses.
Yeah,
where Mother is testing the different ports and he hits that one and he goes whoa, and it's that big run of just gibberish. That's such a cool with the music running. That was the ad break music.
That's really good. And then I also really like when Whistler is driving the car.
Oh my gosh,
driving the van was great.
And Marty's just like, all right, now just keep going. Now you just keep going straight, and you're gonna hit a little bump, and then
Well, So when I was going through the 1-star reviews, right? So there are only 2 1-star reviews, and I was like, okay, I'll back up. There's like
There's a total of 5 reviews.
No, there's like 60,000 reviews.
Oh, wow. What?
No, there's only like it's like 60,000 ratings. There's like 8,000 reviews, something like that.
Okay.
It's still a lot.
I mean, that's still a lot.
I was like, that's more than most everything.
But no, so there are like 2 1-stars, 1 2-star, and like 1 3-star, and like half of them were mad about Whistler as a blind person.
What?
And I was like, I don't like. To me, I was like, this is so cool because they do such a good job of the way he thinks. Like for the whole sequence where like
is it because they were saying it wasn't an accurate portrayal?
No, they're just saying that it was like used as a joke or whatever.
No,
and it's like,
I mean, not really.
I mean,
like,
that sequence is, but it's also amazing.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like he was a pivotal point to get them to the box.
Bit,
Yeah.
The whole he's multiple pivotal
Yeah.
points. The whole bit where Marty is in the trunk and then they're reconstructing it, and he's like, "Well, what did it sound like? Well, what, did you go over a bridge?
Yeah.
Was it fogged
Like,
in?"
he has
that was
agency.
really cool.
That sequence is really cool.
Yeah, he has agency the whole film.
Yeah. So
Is it that they're like it's like a fake
I didn't-
superpower that
I
they're
didn't
trying
read.
to?
I didn't read it very much because it didn't do me any good.
Yeah. Well, so like around the same time, Contact in 1996 also had a blind character in it that had a ton of agency. That's one of my favorite characters of the whole movie, where like he gets like he basically like gives Ellie like her agency throughout the film or whatever. But anyways, like I thought it was great.
Again, I thought seeing again 1992 like it could have just been played for laughs constantly. Like,
Yeah.
you could have been running into stuff or whatever, and it was just done really well. Like because again, it's like everybody on this team brings something different, and his big thing is how he perceives situations. Like the whole bit with the answering machine.
Yeah.
Well, why does
Or
he
at the
need
front
an
when he's just hearing the tones and Mother's like going through them.
Yeah,
because
he's
that's
like,
your
yeah,
first
that's it. Yeah.
introduction to him because you're thinking like, how can a blind guy be a hacker? Like how
Yeah.
everything's especially in the 90s, it's all code and keyboards and seeing what you're doing.
Well, and that's I think a real life reference to a guy who I think it was a blind man, but he was able to whistle at a specific pitch into payphones, and it would trigger the long distance calling.
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah.
for free.
For free. Yeah.
So he was like one of the early hackers essentially.
Yeah.
I love analog hacking. It's like
Dude,
I know,
it's
it's
so
great.
much better that like the bit when they like come in with the trash.
Yeah.
All right, we're going through the trash. What's this guy like? Figure out what he does, what he doesn't do.
And like those kind of moments, I think is what really like stands out to me of like the good moments of the show
They
because it
sell it.
Yeah.
They sell the concept of how tactile this process is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you have really bad stuff of them trying to look at the password of this really weird torrid love affair that isn't even a love affair. I hate that scene.
Why do you hate that scene?
It's just so forced.
It is, but I feel like the scene itself is funny in principle, like what they're trying to do and like what's happening.
I think
and
the
how they
scene within the actual office itself is like, oh, please, this is like every bad romance ever.
Yeah.
But the scene that's happening in the surveillance van is hilarious.
Right, that's the funny part.
You have like Carl who's like, let me see. And they're like, she's gonna get in the way of the keyboard.
and then Sidney Poitier jumps over there, and you're like, okay. But then I think the follow up to that, where he gets caught in his office by the lady, the Russian doctor or whatever, and he's like trying to convince her that he's got this secret wife and like all that stuff,
Yeah.
and they're feeding him stuff. Half the stuff in the earpiece, I was like, what? Like it wasn't that funny.
Yeah.
And some of it was, and that was where I was like, man, in better hands.
That was a little tighter written.
This would have been one of the funniest. Again, I hate keep bringing up Ocean's 11, but like imagine a scene where Rusty's in Danny's ear, like
Because you definitely do have some really funny bits with Redford, like saying it and then realizing what he just said.
He's
for sure,
just following it word for word.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I prior to that sequence, right, when he actually gets into the building, again, you bring up Ocean's 11. It's almost Ocean's 11 is almost a word for word copy of it, where you send in Carl to cause an argument while Redford's like, could you just push the button? I got the cake and the balloons.
That was really good.
Just push the dang button.
Just put the dang button. And then he gets it like, oh, it's an electronic keypad. He's like, okay, hold on, we might have a way that works.
I'm just gonna click it. Yeah.
Okay, sure, I'll give it a try. He just kicks the door open.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I really liked was like the final heist whenever he's like basically having to walk across the room.
Dude,
Oh, yeah.
all the tension, and it's like the one thing I can't do is move fast.
Well, that just because it does layer, but I like the fact that it's really just a limitation of that technology of the time. Of it can't it just doesn't detect slower than this.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason for
It's
it
the
to.
change in movement that
Yeah.
it sets it off. Well, and then the other thing was the whole time they're doing it, they're like, we got to crank this room up to 98 degrees. And then like, he's going to walk slow. And I kept thinking like, all right, that's a stretch. That's a lot to get done. And I was like, as soon as Ben Kingsley opened this door, if he doesn't comment on how hot it is, he opens, he goes, why is it so hot in here? And I'm like,
can you imagine walking into your office
degrees?
and it's 98 degrees?
It's an oven. You would feel the heat before you got to the
There
door
would be
in the
like
hallway.
steam coming out from under that door.
The handle would be warm. Like,
Condensation.
what is this? Yeah.
Why is this whole hall humid?
Also, it'd probably take a long time to get that room up to 98
that poor
degrees.
furnace is like.
Yeah, that's really, really hot.
It's extremely hot for
really warm.
a house. Like, yeah.
Well,
Or
I mean,
inside a
because when
room.
my house gets to like 78, I am dead.
Dude,
Right.
it feels terrible. Now, can you imagine being like, I have to spend the next 7 minutes to cross this room one way.
You're just sweating buckets.
you
I should have come back to him and he's just been
sweat.
asleep on the floor. He's covered in sweat. He can't breathe.
I should have
He
brought a
made
water
it a quarter of the way. And they're like, what are you doing? Get up, Bishop. So the thing I was saying earlier about them like being friends, right? And like I wish I had gotten a little more with that is because of the end where they're on like the
roof.
the ladder and the roof
Yeah.
and they're having that
Yeah.
exchange is like there's no weight to that scene for me because it's like I don't like is this guy about to shoot him? Is he not? Like they want you to have that thing, but there's no I guess for me there's not enough tangible feelings I have one way or other about like if I knew they loved each other and they used to be friends and they were like super tight and now this is this bittersweet like Robert Redford basically gave up on the dream of like let's hack the world, hack the planet, hackers, or something like that. I'd be like, oh man, there's a lot of tension here. Instead, it's just like, oh okay, so it's just
so I actually don't really see it from that perspective of them being like friends and they have to make a decision like not to shoot each other, whatever.
Right.
I think at that point, Marty just knows that he's not going to shoot him.
right.
Not because of like a friendship. He just knows that Cosmo is not that person.
He's not that guy.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I think too. Again, it's the
I did
idea
expect the Point Break moment. I was like,
Every movie can be made better with that scene added into it.
Hot Fuzz certainly was.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to the whole like it's the ideal. So it's like, how does Cosmo shoot this 30 years of ideal that he's had?
exactly.
right?
Like that's
The
kind of where I'm
idealized
looking at
of-
it from.
Okay.
And maybe
So-
that's just because of the second viewing for
could
me.
be, yeah.
It really may be because, like, I don't like being like, oh, there's a lot that goes on in the film, but there's actually
really
a
is,
freaking
yeah.
lot.
It's
And
very
they
nuanced.
don't tell you a whole lot half the time about what it is. Like when they do the dial. Then they end up talking to James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Like they don't really specify, hey, I'm calling the CIA. It's like, well, look for director of research. Like if you don't
Right,
realize,
yeah.
oh, that's probably code for it. You're just like, who are you calling? And why is this
I had
dude,
a couple
why
of
are-
moments like that where
Yeah.
I would catch on later, like after
You're
the
like,
scene was over, I'd go, oh, I guess, okay.
Yeah.
Because, when James Earl Jones first showed up, I was like, what?
Who the heck are
Who's
you?
this guy? And I was like, oh, I guess, okay, that was the dude that must have been CIA. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the pieces fit, but it was like not in the moments I
it's-
think
Yeah,
the
it's not
movie-
explicitly laid out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It doesn't have to be. I think it's just like there wasn't enough inference or nuance to be like.
No, I totally get it too because
Yeah.
like where you are,
Right, you
was
were
where
there.
I
Yeah.
was the first time I watched it.
This is rapidly sounding like what we recommend is watching it twice.
I guess so.
Or more.
Let's do a yearly podcast. We do it once a year. It's called Sneaking Up on Sneakers, and we watch it every year on like the same date, and we just do one podcast.
On 9/11, obviously.
Obviously,
Oh, no,
yeah.
please
There's
don't.
nothing terrible about that.
no bad connotations.
Jeez.
They don't literally say you want to crash a plane in the middle of this film.
No, yeah, they do.
They do, yeah.
I forgot when they said that. Oh God,
man.
that didn't age well at all. Because then you're like, hold on, that's a lot of murder. Slow down, Whistler. Or who says? Is it Mother or Whistler?
Whistler.
It's
Yeah,
Whistler. Hey,
Whistler.
Whistler, dial it back, God complex.
So the final scene with James Earl Jones, I actually think it's very tonally different than the rest of the film.
It's very jokey.
It feels like it was filmed first, and then they did the rest of the movie or something.
It doesn't really fit with how everything else shakes out.
Yeah.
Just because, like, the CIA would never do that.
Right.
But
and then again, everybody's asking for stuff that's like, that's it? That's your ask?
For all we know is what they've asked for is less than $175,000.
That's what I was going to say.
Like, dude, the NSA is a bunch of chumps. We can get this work done for cheap.
I want to go on a vacation for 2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, I know. 2 weeks, I was like, whoa.
The CIA spender over here.
Yeah, look out.
I want a Winnebago. Seriously, dude?
Yeah, you can just go buy
a Winnebago.
Yeah. It's 92. They're probably like $2,000.
Are living off of peanuts, apparently.
Clearly.
in a huge warehouse, unfinished room in the middle of
Chicago?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah, because of the bay. Yeah,
they're in San Francisco. It took me a second.
Maybe all their money goes to rent.
So they can't afford. Why do we have a 6,000 square foot office space? There's only 8 of us.
Is huge.
Look, maybe they should just stop drinking at Starbucks. They'd probably make it back.
Less avocado toast.
Yeah. Come on, guys. No, that would have been funnier if they played into the fact that all of these dudes are absolutely beyond broke, like every one of them.
Yeah.
So every heist they go on, they're like, "You gonna finish that?" And they're like cleaning people's plates.
That would have been a really fun angle.
And then at the end, they're like, "It's $125,000." Are you kidding me? They're spitting out their drinks. And it's like, yeah.
I mean, there was good humor in this.
There was.
The initial heist where they. Redford and Poitier go up the fire escape and meet Carl, and he's sitting there doing blackface for like the infiltration. They both just look at him like, "Are you stupid or something?"
Yeah.
And then Redford absolutely beefs it going over the counter.
Yeah. No, there's good moments. I feel like for me, it's the editing almost overall is like it could have been tightened up or like that one the scene right before the Scrabble thing where it's just the party.
Yeah.
It just cuts to party and you're like, what's this for? Is this somebody's birthday? What's happening? You know, and it's like they're just everyone's wives is here and you're like, why? I thought we were right in the middle of like a whole heisty thing here. We're like in the middle of this.
They stole the thing. The thing is done. We're all happy.
Yeah,
and then
I guess it's a celebration.
Bad.
It's just
really
a celebration
bad.
because they're about to get paid.
Yeah, it's like
peanuts.
Peanuts,
literally peanuts. Yeah,
we're each gonna make $10,000 after expenses.
I think it's just the way some of those scenes cut and like go back and forth. And like the comedy, if they had like trimmed a bit here or whatever, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it could have been tightened up. Like the earpiece scene. Like there's a couple of those that like. If the go back and forth was a little faster, maybe it would have
definitely pieces that could either be a little tighter or a little more explored.
Yeah.
Like they have a sequence here where the mob kills the Russian like cultural ambassador.
Yeah.
And nobody's worried about it after a certain point.
And that's just it.
Just stops being
You're
a problem.
Like, what? Like, I thought this guy was going to be
in the middle of the tunnel in San Fran just guns 2 people down.
It's like, that's. There's some stuff in there.
There's some stuff that's just kind of forgotten and they move past it or whatever. Yeah.
Although I will say I do love. Oh gosh, what is his name? He was not in the list of cast, and I've already moved away from stuff.
The Russian.
No, I mean I did like Greg or whatever, the Russian ambassador. No, Eddie Jones as Buddy Wallace, the fatter of the 2.
Oh yeah.
They're like, oh, not you again. The whap.
When
that's a concussion. That's
that
brain
was
damage.
One of those scenes that like felt awkward or felt weird was like when he goes to them and he's like, I can't remember what he asked him, but he's like, did you used to be part of whatever? He's like, no, both my parents were married. And he goes, why? And he like goes after him. I'm like, that was an escalation.
I love that. No, that was good to me.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's just like it's like this guy went from 0 to 60 and I'll punch your lights out. It's like that's what got you? Like, that's nothing. Like
this dude needs to go see a therapist.
That's
You've
just
got some trauma back there.
He's
mild
part of the
ribbing.
mob, so probably.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How did you know my parents weren't married? Whoa! We hit a nerve.
Thrown out of the CIA and then joined the mob.
I think it was NSA.
NSA, one of the
NSA,
two. I mean, it's a pretty natural career path, honestly.
Sure.
You would know.
For all the mafia listening, we're just joking. We're just joking.
For all the NSA who are listening, because just by default they listen. We're not joking.
They're not. They're not listening to this show.
Episode.
They are. They're one of our downloads every week.
They wait with bated breath.
There's some one poor NSA agent just like, they're talking again.
I have to listen to it.
It's about sneakers this time.
It's some Zoomer. He's like 22. He's like, I don't even know what movie this is.
They play paper, rock, scissors every night. No, I gotta listen to spoilers intended.
Oh, all right. So the real question here is, would you recommend it? Would you rewatch it?
I would recommend it if you like heist and spy thrillers for sure. I'd definitely rewatch it again. I mean, it's something I would throw on.
It seems to be building here for you. So
I
mission
would,
accomplished.
I would only recommend it to someone who I think has the attention span to like.
It's definitely.
You gotta pay attention to
it's
the
not.
film.
Yeah. It doesn't go a mile a minute. It's pretty slow.
No, it's kind of slow, and it's like I would never be like, this should be your first heist movie.
No,
I feel like there's
not.
much better examples.
I think there's a lot better. I do think with all the parallels to Ocean's 11, you can see a lot of prototype or like bones.
Oh, for sure,
for future heist films. But like Ocean's 11 is way more polished.
Well, I think there's better heist films from before this, honestly. Like, you know what I mean? Like the original Ocean's 11 is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
The original Italian Job.
The original Italian, like
that's a good one.
There are. It's hard for me to like recommend this other than just to someone who's like, I really love heist movies, or if you love Robert Redford, I would recommend it. And to me, when I rewatch it, apparently I need to rewatch it because every time you watch it, it gets better. So I wouldn't be opposed to rewatching it, but like for watching this, it's available like nowhere.
It's not available
It is pretty hard to find.
I had to rent it on YouTube, and I was like, how do you even do this?
Prime Video, baby.
Yeah. And so then I watched it or whatever, and I was like, if it was streaming somewhere and like
on Netflix or something.
My wife was like, hey, was it any good? But let's pop it on, But I would give her the big preface of like, okay, now listen. If you're ever like, well, who are they calling? We'll pause it and I'll tell you, because like having seen it once, you pick up a lot of stuff, and then maybe I would appreciate it more. But I wouldn't be opposed to rewatching it, but I'm not going to go out of my way. That's my. Yeah.
I do think it's one of those things where you have to have the framework in your head, and then watch it again to really fall and be like, kind of stuff.
Then you're not going like I was. Sometimes it would cut to a scene. I go, and what is happening? Why are we here? Where are we at?
What is this building?
What's that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, like I was. There was multiple times where it would be after the scene where I'd go, okay. That's what they were doing. So maybe the second watch is like,
I can tell you, as someone who's probably seen this film a dozen times.
What's it like after 12?
It's still great, actually. I mean, it's been a couple years since I've seen it.
Yeah.
Literally the last time Andrew had seen it.
Yeah.
I was in my old apartment. So I mean, it's 4 or 5 years ago.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's actually longer than that because that was before COVID.
Well, 5 years ago is before COVID. Yeah. 2019, baby.
Yeah. What's time's a flat circle, guys?
Time's a flat circle.
But yeah, I mean, I think if movies like, I think War Games is a good parallel. If you enjoy War Games, there's a lot in War Games that's going to translate into this. Both in the feel that analog era of hacking to me is really that like makes me warm and happy inside.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just because it's such a tactile feel for technology at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm going to recommend it. I forced y'all to watch it. So,
Sure. Yeah. Put us in a trunk of a car, took us to a location.
Hit you over the sound like. I murdered the Russian ambassador, hit you over the head, threw you in the trunk.
Oh, NSA is going to have a field day with that one.
I just heard Andrew crying the whole way there. I don't know.
We stopped halfway so I could open the trunk and hit you again.
Yeah.
And then, we just rolled you out on a street somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that does sound like we are winding it down here, wrapping it up. But before we let you go, we got to talk about the best way you can support the show. If you like what you hear, just $1 on Patreon.
Patreon.
For just $1 a month, you can gain access to all of our bonus content, our bonus episodes, Patreon picks, polls, where you get to choose what we're going to review once a month-ish.
You can put a rudder in the water and steer the course of this ship by making us...
This was not a boat episode.
It could have been.
Does it have to be? You guys with your, it's got to be exactly about what we're talking about.
But we have commentaries. You can sync up your phone and watch a movie with us. We also have, we did mention bonus episodes. We have a lot of fun ones. We have tier lists.
Different
we have
format than our normal episodes. They're all over the place. Yeah,
it's $1, right? Every time that a new $1 patron signs up, we throw a party. We invite our wives because
we genuinely do get really excited.
We're making fun of these guys, like celebrating over like I'm just now realizing the hypocrisy. Like we get $1, we're like, hey, it's $1! Wow!
In this economy,
break out the Shasta. We'll split one between the three of us. Yeah, I'm realizing now the hubris in which we were judging these guys.
Alrighty. Well, on that note, follow us on socials, leave us a review wherever you're listening now, and share us with a friend. Until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And every spoiler was